Welcome, everybody. I appreciate you all coming today to be part of this important conversation on the immigration crackdown, both across the nation and right here in Texas. While we see the headlines on the news, we are here today to go beyond the sound bites. Our guest speakers are on the front lines, and they've joined us to share their firsthand experiences of what is actually happening on the ground in Texas. We owe the success of this gathering to the partnership of 3 phenomenal clubs. These groups were built to be a home for people who share our values, creating a space where we don't just work to elect Democrats, but where we build a true community. A huge thank you to the leadership teams for their tireless dedication to making this happen. We have Laura Haines from Flower Mound Democrats, Trista Williford from Lewisville Democrats, and myself from Lantana Democrats. If any of you out there are members of the leadership teams of these clubs, could you please stand up? So we're also honored to have several dedicated public servants and leaders with us today. Please stand as I call your name. We have a full house of candidates who are stepping up to lead. Many have tables in the back where they're sharing their candidate information, their campaign, accepting donations, there for you to ask them questions. So let's see who's here. I know Ernest Lineberger is here. He's running for US 26. Stephen Shook, are you here somewhere? There's Stephen, who's also running for US 26. And then, let's see, I know that Denise Wooten is here for running for HD 63. Where's Ray? Ray Stipp, he's running for HD 57. I know he's checked in. Where is he? Oh, you're representing, okay. And let's see, Julie Evans is here, HD 64. Where are you? Let's see, who else? We have some candidates for commissioner, for county commissioner. We have Candace Valenzuela. Where are you, Candace? And let's see, then no, Nick's not here. How about Dale Frey running for county clerk back there? We're also pretty proud that we have a full slate for the JP, which is wonderful. We're calling them the Justice League. We have a couple of them here. We have Katrina Moore. Where's Katrina? Katrina is also an immigration attorney, by the way, so if you go back and talk to her at the end, you might want to ask her some questions. We have Trista running for JP3. And I think that's all of the Justice League that's here. Let's see. Then we have a couple of, we're looking ahead to the May elections, the municipal elections, and we have Paige Dixon here. She's running for school board for LISD. And let's see, George Ferry, are you here? There he is. George Ferry is running for Denton City Council. Okay, I think that's it for that. But I do want to recognize, by the way, the true backbone of the Democratic Party. They are our precinct chairs. You are the ones who keep our neighbors informed and get them to the polls. Would all the precinct chairs that are here please stand? So we still have several vacancies for this very important position. So if you're interested either in being a precinct chair or helping a precinct chair, please let us know. Because we need all the help we can get. As you know, midterms, super, super important. And got to get people out there and informed. So now we're going to begin our program, and Laura Haines is going to introduce the candidates. I mean, the speakers. I did the candidates.
This was truly a collaborative effort, but I must say that this is Gina's baby. This was her idea. This was all her. So thank you, Gina. This is a very timely forum. Lilyann Prado-Carillo has a master's degree in public administration from our very own University of North Texas. She is a motivational speaker, a workshop facilitator, and community leader with more than 20 years of experience in education, nonprofit leadership, civic engagement. She speaks nationally on the power of storytelling, service-driven leadership, and helping individuals identify, advocate for, and stay rooted in their cause. As a first-generation college graduate and longtime educator, Lilyann brings both lived experience and professional expertise to conversations about immigration, identity, and belonging. Her work centers on fostering meaningful dialogue, encouraging curiosity and critical reflection, and creating spaces where civil discourse can thrive, especially across differences. She believes lasting change begins with listening, understanding context, and staying engaged with empathy and intention, followed by action. And she is here with us today. Please join me in welcome Lilyann Prado-Carillo.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, all of you. I'm going to try to go through my remarks pretty quickly because there are two ladies that are following me that have a lot of great information to share. So thank you for being here today and for choosing to show up with curiosity, hopefully. Conversations about immigration are emotional, they're personal, and they're often very political, but at the core, they're about people. And today my role is simply to share my story, not because it's unique, but because it's familiar to too many. I came to this country from Guatemala when I was 4 years old. I didn't cross the border on my own. I didn't make a political decision. I was a child brought here by a parent who believed that this country offered safety, opportunity, and a future that simply was not available where we were coming from. I crossed into this country on the shoulders of a coyote. My dad brought my sister on his shoulders when the river was too high. So we faced a lot of uncertainty, and a lot of people think that the hardest part is coming to this country, but actually the hardest part was once we got here. I grew up with a single parent, navigating a system that we didn't understand, and often trusting people that we shouldn't. We paid lawyers who took our money and did nothing after the 1986 amnesty. We lived in constant uncertainty, always one document or one deadline away from everything unraveling. As I got older, I worked, like many undocumented young people, with using a fake Social Security, not because I wanted to break the law, but because I needed to survive and we needed to help pay bills. We needed to eat, we needed to exist, and all of that carried a lot of weight. I went to school feeling like I was hiding. I watched my classmates do things that I couldn't even dream of, like study abroad trips and internships, opportunities that needed paperwork that I knew that I didn't have. I graduated high school, I went on to college, and once again I hired an attorney. We paid thousands and thousands of dollars in 10 days before I expired under immigration law. So not only are we called illegal, but we also expire. 10 days before I turned 21, I got a green card in the mail. 10 days before that, 3 months later, I had a full ride to a university. From there, my life didn't change suddenly, but it did become possible. I went on to graduate from college. I did an internship in Washington, D.C., and I eventually became a citizen. Later on, I ran for office as well. That arc of being an undocumented child to a citizen to a candidate is not exceptional, but I do want to be clear, my story is not rare. I've met hundreds, thousands of students on this same journey, different details, but the same weight, the same fear, and also the same resilience. What is coming through this is the shame that people try to place on us for where we come from, for the choices that we did or didn't make, and for the reasons that we're here, and the histories that we didn't create. I am a person of faith, I'm a Christian, And recently I've been reading a book called Central America's Forgotten Past, about the forces that shape the instability of people that are fleeing from different countries, about the foreign interventions, about resources that were extracted and they were never replenished, and the land that was taken from indigenous communities, about systems that benefited outsiders while leaving generations with nothing. So when people wonder why immigrants are coming here, let's go back and let's look at that history. I want to be clear about something too. I don't believe that immigrants just take, we also give. We work, often the hardest jobs, least protected jobs. We contribute billions in taxes. We build businesses. We care for children and elders. We fill classrooms and construction sites, hospitals and fields. The workforce here. We strengthen the economy and we strengthen our communities. Yet today, the conversation has become so polarized that today we've stopped talking to each other. The language used by the right to describe the left and the language used by the left to describe the right is often the exact same language, just aimed in different directions. I want to make sure that we are thinking about this and that we are looking and that we're critically analyzing each other. We've fallen into tribalism, this idea that it's all of us versus all of them, and if we keep doing that, no one's going to win. Civil discourse does matter. I teach students across the country, I split them into groups, and I give them a debate about what's better, pizza versus tacos. And every single time, the first argument is not why their choice is so great, it's always why the other side is so terrible. That is where we are in society. We spend so much talking about how everyone else is wrong that we forget to articulate what we actually stand for. So today I challenge you not to agree with everything that you hear maybe, but to listen with open ears, be curious, engage and ask questions and invite dialogue. If you want to hear, if you want to talk to people who have actually gone through this process, just ask them, invite them to coffee, bring this conversation, bring more opportunities like this for people to get together, even open up your home. I hope that you guys are here with the intent to help, to get involved, right? It's not just enough to come out here and to learn and to be educated, but we also have to take action. These are real people. These are your children's friends that are sitting in the classrooms right next to them. These are families that you go to work with, that you see every single day. I pray that we are all here and that we're all going to move through this together. And I thank my two friends that are here that are about to share some really important information. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lilyann. Angela Andrade is a community organizer rooted in the immigrant rights movement, driven by lived experience with a deep commitment to justice. Organizing alongside directly impacted communities to challenge systems of oppression and build collective power. Her work is grounded in people power, advancing equality, and advocating for policies for a collective liberation for all. Please join me in welcoming Angie Andrade.
Hi everyone, my name is Angie. I've been a community organizer here in Dallas, Texas, 17 years now. I actually started organizing without realizing I was organizing because I came home one day and my parents weren't home. There wasn't a system in place to figure out what happens to us kids. I'm the oldest of 6. We were just left to figure it out on our own. I did everything from sleeping in a park to sleeping in a car. My parents were incarcerated. We had no one else, right, to kind of look after us. Luckily enough, I was old enough to have a job. I made tacos at Pancho's Mexican Buffet. And my boss at the time, her name was Renee. She would always give us the food she'd always order a new line, and I always wondered why she did that, because I was like, we're closing, that makes no sense, why you're putting a bunch of food out. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I realized she was sending it home to my siblings and I so we could eat. But I share that because that is how I got taken care of, was by community. And it fueled my work and why I still continue to be a community organizer today, and seeing that the systems that were created to harm us. They were created to oppress us. They're working in favor the way that they're supposed to work. And so when people are saying the system is broken, it's not broken, that's the way it was created. But we all have the power to change that, right? That's why we're here. We have people here that are working towards policy changes. So one of the things that I want to share today, that I was asked to share today, was the work that I'm doing currently. The Dallas ICE field office is at 8101 North Stemmons Freeway. This is where our community members who have open asylum cases or some kind of immigration case go to check in as a regular check-in every single month or every single year, depending on their case. We got a phone call back in October. I was actually on a family trip, and I got a phone call from a friend from college who shared that she got a phone call from a really good friend that she went to her ICE check-in, the friend, and that her husband was in the car waiting with their child. And that the ICE agent came out, asked her a question. She said, "I'm here for my check-in." He said, "Okay, who'd you come with?" She said, "I'm here with my husband. He's in the car with my child." She said he walked away, came back, gave her the keys and said, "Here, we took your husband," and he was detained. He did not have a check-in. He had a court date for a future date, a case of asylum case. So my friend said, when she told me, I was like, that's not possible. I mean, it is possible in this era we're in. But legally speaking, the only person that can decide on whether or not someone has a deportation order is a judge, not an ICE agent that was just hired making that decision. That is not something that completely takes out due process. I immediately called out to my community organizer friends. My friend Sandra, she had to step away, but hey, this is going on. We need to figure out what to do, because if they're doing this, that means due process is over with completely. And we went, and it was exactly that. They were pulling people from their cars that were waiting, family members. You'll see an ICE agent come out and snatch the person out of the car. Whether there was a child in the car, didn't matter. Whether or not the car was on, didn't matter. Whether or not they had an open asylum case, didn't matter. Whether or not they had a green card, didn't matter. It didn't matter if they were a resident, didn't matter if they had a green card, didn't matter if they had an asylum case. They were all being detained. Seeing this, we said, okay, what can we do? Well, we got a hold of something called a privacy waiver. So we tried to talk to every single person that was coming into their check-ins to say, this is what we've seen, this is what's going on, let's make sure that you're prepared. And at first everyone's like, I'm just coming for a check-in. It's my regular check-in. It's the legal part of the process. I have to check in. I have to go in. I said, yes. But let's get this in case you are detained. Where are your keys to your car? Does your wife have your information to your bank account so she can access? Is your rent paid? Is your mortgage paid? Do you have businesses? Are those taken care of? So mind you, they're coming into a regular check-in and they're trying to figure out why I have to figure out my entire life right now. And so now we've created a system. We've tried our best to try to get to every single person. We see between 35 to 70 people a day, and I say that's every single day. We're out there Monday through Saturday. Saturdays, it's a little bit less because it's a Saturday, but Monday through Friday. With that being said, this is every day we're out there having these conversations. The goal for the Dallas ICE field office, the ERO, is 100 arrests per day. Now, people say, well, why are they detaining people who are doing it, the way everyone's saying, do it the right way? Why are they detaining? According to them, it's because it's low-hanging fruit. That these are easy people for them to kidnap because they are showing up. So I can get into the policy side about hurtado and how that was done, but I feel like I'm in a space where everybody kind of knows of some of these things that are happening with our within the legality of everything, or illegality of everything. But out of all this, when people are saying, what is the call to action? What are families that are from directly impacted communities? What is the need? What is the CTAs, the calls to action? And that is mutual aid. Because every single day, I have to sit here and be in community, and I get to be here in community, and I have to talk to these women who are sitting there with their children because their husband was detained. A lot of our community from the Latin community, Hispanic community, are traditional families. So their wives don't work, the husband works, he's the breadwinner. So now a lot of times we've had to, well, now we have a system where we have volunteers that have signed up to then drive the wife who can't drive the car home, right? Because she can't drive. Figuring out how to pay her rent, how to get groceries to her, how to get baby formula, how to get baby, because all of these things, the husband's not gone. He's now detained, right? From when he gets detained in that the Dallas ICE field office, they can be there for 24 to 72 hours. Okay, I have to remind you, that's an office. That is not a concentration camp. That is not what they call a detention center, what we are calling a concentration camp. There is no beds there. It's like a jail cell. Nonetheless, they're there for 24 to 72 hours. Within that time frame, they're given one call for about a few seconds. It can be anywhere from 5 seconds to 20 seconds. It says, hey, I was detained. They hang up the phone. And that's it. From then, the family, wife, child, whoever we're talking to, sometimes it's the kids, their parents went in for their appointment. Whoever it is we're talking to, we have to figure out what's the plan. What's the plan from there? Who drives the car home? Where are the kids going to go to? Where's mom going to? All of these things. So as the organizers are on the ground doing all this, we have to ask for funds, right? We have to ask for mutual aid funds to assist the families. Because immediately we found out that that was the need. Because a lot of times they carry cash and they walk in with the cash. Now, whatever they walk in with, the community member, the family, we always tell them, if you don't want ICE to keep it, don't take it with you. Because there's been numerous times where they're about to pay their rent, so they go in with this wad of cash. We go and try to retrieve that for the family. We don't know what happened to it. So when we're talking about making sure everybody's getting prepared, we're preparing them with what we've seen. And there's a lot of things that are going on, but we're there every single day on the ground and we're seeing it firsthand. In the process of taking care of all this and all of the things, there's also tactics they are using. For example, a woman went in for her appointment. They say, hey, call your husband to come in. We're going to set him up an appointment. We said, no, they don't set appointments here. That's not how it works. And she said, well, they said I could go drop off my kid and I can come back, and they said it would be fine, that they were going to send him an appointment. They detained her husband. So there's tactics that are being used. Another tactic, it was a young man, he was 18, he was in high school. They told his parents to come in. And we told the parents, if you're going in voluntarily to be voluntarily detained. The parents said, that's my son, I have to go. They went, they detained the son and the father together. They're now in a Louisiana detention center. So now mom and her daughter are left to fend for themselves because husband was a provider. There's countless stories that go beyond what we're seeing, because now that we have direct contact with the families, they also share what's going on in the concentration camps. Some of the things that we've heard is the women are being sexually assaulted. The food they're getting has worms or it's frozen and inedible. They're not given toothbrushes, hygiene products, unless they have funds for them. So if the family's not able to afford to put funds, then they can't get those items. It's been a lot to have to try to explain to people what we're seeing, what we see every single day. And I hope that sharing this is just, I talk to at minimum 35 people a day. And we've been out there since October. And so I share all that to say that, I see the people going out, going to protesting, doing all these things. I love that people are waking up. I love that people are seeing the reality that we've been going on for years. I've known for 17 years. I love that people are waking up. I would just say the call to action for us is to provide mutual aid, right? It can be as simple as a gift card, a gas gift card, to donate to the Respite Center, which is our organization. We're outside of the field office. So that way we can just easily give it to the families. Gift cards for groceries, beanies, gloves. A lot of times they're not prepared to be detained, so they come wearing regular sweater. It's very cold. They call them hieleras, which are freezers. They call it because they're so cold. And so getting jackets, we got a big donation of jackets. They were all gone last week because it was freezing. So things like that, that's tangible that you can do to, support the organizers that are also coming from impacted communities. As far as your rights, because I was kind of watching, I will tell you, I am no more safe than you are no more safe than we are anymore. Like, we are all on the same page now. Like, we're all on the same boat, and the way we can get out of this is like being in solidarity with each other and being in that collective energy of understanding that we can get through this together if we come together as a collective and support each other. And the need right now is providing mutual aid for the families who are being separated every single day. Out of the people that I talk to, those 30 to 75, about 95 to 98% of those people get detained. So it is incredibly rare. Not to mention that we're already there. We get families who has just experienced a raid. Either ICE broke into their car or ICE broke into their home. It's been Dallas, Garland, Oak Cliff, Pleasant Grove, Irving. There's an app called ICE Out, and you can see on there, and it'll show you of all of the places. Now, because I'm there every single day, I've seen the brand new Chevrolet Tahoes come in, brand new, just being brought in to get tinted. I've seen the mass amount of agents that have been hired, who are majority people of color. I've seen them ramp up, including training canine dogs so they can start bringing out canines with their ICE agents as they're doing raids. So I'm there on ground zero. I can share what I can share, but my priority is always prioritizing the families that are there and providing the service there. I'm gonna be here afterwards for any questions. I would say if you decide to join a protest, Dallas, as far as us, we don't have the infrastructure set to be able to participate in a protest in our current political climate. There was a protest in Daly. 2 people were arrested there, and they were federally charged with obstruction and a felony. And so if you're considering protesting, I say it as be prepared, have an attorney, a civil rights attorney, understand what your rights are, know your rights as far as like what rights you have when a federal ICE agent comes up to you to ask you questions. You do not have to answer them. If it's a police officer, you have to identify yourself. But if it's an ICE agent, that's a federal ICE agent, you do not have to identify yourself. You can just, I have a constitutional right to remain silent. And that is what we tell everybody if you are approached by a federal agent. They cannot legally pull you over. They are not police. With that being said, ensure that you have a jail fund, jail support, emergency contact, medical information. We're in a time where unless you are out saying that you support ICE and you support our current president, then you are somebody that is a target. And so also taking into account operational security, making sure your phone is not on where you can do the face recognition, making sure that you have it set up with a passcode, making sure your family has an emergency contact for you, and has any information. US citizens are being detained now as well, anyone who's showing up to protest. That is very difficult. I tried finding a US citizen along with our indigenous community. I've had a very difficult time finding in the system, in the immigration system, because when you are put into the immigration system, you're given an alien identification number or A number. However, if you're a US citizen or you are from the indigenous community, you don't have an A number because you don't have an immigration case. So then you cannot be found. And so that is the issue we're running into a lot here. That's why I say fill out a privacy waiver, have one filled out. We do have a digital copy. I know this is a lot of information and it's a lot to condense in 20 minutes, but I'm looking to a room of people who are actively listening, and so I know that y'all want to do something. And I would just say be strategic about it. If you show up to a protest, ask those questions. Do y'all have a jail fund? Who's taking the privacy waivers, or who's doing, like, try to really figure out what you're doing, because at the end of the day, if you're there, as a person who just want to show up, it's not the same anymore. They were thrown tear gas or some chemical within a few minutes after given one warning. I've been going to protests for years. You're given at least at a minimum one to give you that warning, and then the last one that's it. They were given one, not even a warning, saying to step back, and they were immediately given tear gas after that, or the chemical, sorry. So I'd say they're definitely ramping up from what I've seen to escalate things here. I do imagine, nobody knows, but I do imagine what's been happening will eventually happen here, and we just have to be strategic and prepare for that, of that collective. If you are in, she was sharing, talk to your community, talk to your neighbors, because at the end of the day, we do have to protect each other. Yes. Thank you. Yeah. I would say to help, right now, it would be, so we do have, it's called, we have a link where that's the mutual aid. 100% of our Respite Center, and I wish I had time to create a presentation because it's a beautiful thing that we've created out of community. It's a tent. It's a blue tent that was sponsored anonymously, and we have food that is made by different ladies from churches that have gone together. We have a clergy that show up every single day for pastoral support, to provide a prayer for the family. So if you're a pastor, you can sign up to be a clergy to offer pastoral support. If your love is food, you can make food or buy food and bring it to the Respite Center. A lot of times that's the last meal the family has before they get into a cage. And it also is for the volunteers who are there all day. So the number one is the mutual aid fund. It's called the Liberation Fund, and I'll share with you so you can share it maybe on the screen. And then we have a sign up for volunteers who can donate your time or expertise. It could be something simple as creating a presentation. I had no time to do it because I was at the airport for a family reunification. She signed a voluntary departure, and that was an entire thing this morning because ICE now wants to be there and make sure that they're there to watch that she gets on the plane and removes the ankle monitor in front of everybody and stops everything. It's an incredibly dehumanizing experience. But yeah, I'll give you the links. Like I said, it's the mutual aid. We are thinking about a legal fund and what that looks like to provide legal representation. And then the food and your expertise. But yeah, I'll be here after if y'all have any questions as well. Okay.
Gina's going to have all that information in an email for you. Okay. And now, lastly, we have Maria Eugenia Macias, who is an immigration attorney at Macias Law in Lewisville, Texas. She graduated in 2008 from Baylor University with a double major in international business and business management, and earned her law degree in 2011 from DePaul University College of Law. Maria began her career in 2011 at Catholic Charities of Dallas and Justice for Our Neighbors, helping families seek protection and legal status in the United States. She opened her own firm in 2016 and continues to focus on family-based and humanitarian immigration cases. She is licensed in Texas, admitted to practice in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Texas, and is fluent in English and Spanish. Maria is a board member of Opening Doors International Services and has been recognized as a Texas Rising Star by Super Lawyers in 2024 and 2025. Please join me in welcoming Maria Eugenia Macias.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and to share some information that I know is needed right now. And just to add just a little bit of more background about me, The reason I chose immigration was really personal. My grandfather was a bracero, that's a migrant worker. There is a program in the 40s through 60s where migrant workers from Mexico could come and work on the field, so he did that. And my parents also came here without status, and they were able to get status through the amnesty program with Reagan, and that allowed me to be born here and have opportunities here that they didn't. And I'm also first generation grad. So this is just really personal to me, and that's why I chose immigration law. So I know today we want to talk about, like, how did we get to this point? But I think to talk about that, we have to know history. So in 1996, that was the first meaningful immigration law after the amnesty of '86. And this was something negative, and it's very archaic, and it hasn't been changed in 30 years. So this expanded deportation grounds, it reduced judicial review, so there are certain cases where people just can't appeal because the appellate court will say we do not have any judicial review, and there's just really limited discretion. So this still controls, like I said, cases 30 years later, and when people say, why don't you just apply and get in line, or it's so easy, right? Just submit an application and just be in line, it's because they most likely don't qualify for anything. Nobody wants to be undocumented for 30 years, 20 years, and just not submit an application. Sometimes there is no application for them. Then also something else that has contributed to the situation now is the INS reorganization after 9/11. INS was abolished and DHS was created. So Department of Homeland Security and CBP, USCIS were created. And this changed because it made immigration as part of national security. And these three agencies have different roles, or are supposed to. So ICE obviously enforces immigration and handles detention. Customs Border Protection controls entry and border decisions. And USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, they process immigration benefits. So lately, USCIS has also been more of an enforcement mechanism, and it's not really the customer service role that they were supposed to do. So what has followed is that now we just have enforcement without reform. It's just enforcement keeps expanding. We keep funding CBP, funding ICE. There's more detention beds around the country, and we don't have any more pathways to citizenship. So agencies are now filling gaps as well with policy. So it's happening every 4 years in these past, really since Bush. It's that we have one administration maybe that's more relaxed with immigration, and then we have the next administration that's more anti-immigration. So every 4 years it's just it's almost like new laws, but it's not, because it's just policy that can be changed by a future president. And so what has happened is that we've tried to have, due to Congress not acting, we've had presidents try to fill that gap of having these temporary policy fixes. So the one that most people remember is Obama, June 15, 2012. He announced the creation of DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and that was because Congress didn't act, and this allowed childhood arrivals to apply for a work permit. But it's not a permanent legal status, it's temporary, and they're trying to take it away. There's a current pending federal court case where in Texas it is very likely that they will stop renewing DACAs, and DACAs will have to leave the state. And that's pending a decision. They're expecting it sometime before March of this year. Another humanitarian parole, maybe you've heard of CBP-1. That was a program with Biden where it allowed people to be interviewed when they were coming in, vetted, and go through a credible fear interview to see if they would possibly qualify for asylum. Now that's taken away. CBP-1 is now CBP Home, where you can sign up on the app to leave the country and receive some money to leave, which I haven't heard of anyone actually getting the money. And TPS, even though that was created by Congress, so temporary protected status, and that's when there's something going on in a country that's so terrible that the person just cannot go back. So the latest has been Venezuela. This administration said no more, we're not going to continue that, so now we have a lot of people whose work permits are going to expire or have already expired. So they still, they lost their job, they still have bills, they're here. A lot of them don't have passports because we don't have a Venezuelan embassy or consulates here. So they're in limbo. They can't really fly home either. There's no flights to Venezuela right now. So what's going on is that we're just moving the goalposts. So basically people that were allowed to stay before and have their work permit and have that type of stability, at least with their work permit, now that's being taken away. Now we hear about, this person's here illegally, but then we realize that they actually applied for asylum and they have a pending case. So how can they be here illegally? They're just changing the labels. They're also changing some rules mid-process where people are going to their immigration interviews and they're asking for more evidence that they shouldn't, or they're using some discretion through something called public charge by saying, oh, you're too old, you don't have health insurance, you're likely to be a public charge, so we're going to deny your case. And that's happening more often now. They're also defunding nonprofits. So Catholic Charities of Dallas, I used to work there, and I've gotten a lot of calls from them because they lost funding and they had to terminate a lot of the immigration lawyers that were working there. And now there's cases that are they're not being monitored. I talked to a lady who, she called me and said that someone at Catholic Charities saw her case and saw that she had a denial for her case, for a U visa case, which is for a victim of a crime. And she's been waiting almost 10 years for a final decision. And she just realized that they asked for more evidence. There were no attorneys to look at the case or to call her. And now they denied it. And there's a new policy at USCIS where if your case is denied, you can be sent a notice to appear in immigration court. So that's what I told her, be prepared, you try to refile, but also be prepared because there may be a notice sent to you, and it's very likely it's going to be sent to Catholic Charities and not her. So because some of these humanitarian programs were set up to protect the victim, so they don't want the aggressor or perpetrator to look at the victim's mail, so the legal representative gets all of the mail. So that's why Catholic Charities in that case would probably still continue getting mail. So now, complying is a risk. So people are going to their ICE check-ins, like Angie said, and they're getting detained. People are going to court hearings, so they'll show up and then the judge will say, oh, your case is terminated. They walk out, ICE takes them. There's no pending case, so they can just be taken. And then also just people applying for immigration status, like I mentioned, the new policy about issuing a notice to appear in court. Like if your case is denied, so that applies across the board, and it used to not apply to cases where it was based on humanitarian law. So like if you were a victim of a crime, if you were applying because you're a victim of domestic violence perpetrated by a citizen spouse, if you're trafficked at work and you're applying for something called a T visa, if you applied and were denied, you'd stay in the same situation because you're vulnerable and you're putting your situation out there. Now, if you apply and you're denied, you can be sent to court. And something else that we're dealing with is the pretermission of asylum cases. So people are going to their asylum interviews, and then if they get denied at that point, they get referred to court. Then they go to court, and then they tell them, we're actually terminating your case. The judge looked at your application and doesn't think you have a case, basically. Or they're being offered something, a safe third country option, where they're saying, there's this other country that wants to take you in, so you can go there. So I had a call about somebody from Venezuela. He's a gay man from Venezuela, and they were telling him he could go to Uganda, which if you know their laws, that's not a safe third country. So now he has to fight that in court as well. Detention and bond. So it's really hard to get bond now. There's categories for certain individuals where you can't apply for a bond. So if you want to fight your case, you have to remain there detained. So people who entered without inspection, people that entered through visa waiver program, They're not allowed to seek a regular bond hearing, so they have to file a writ of habeas corpus in federal court, and that's becoming an issue with access to counsel. Not all attorneys want to file or can file in federal court, and it's also money, right? Another thing that's happening is that people are being detained and then transferred to another state, where I'm hearing calls from clients saying, I hired somebody locally, paid them, they showed up to the bond hearing, and they were told the person was transferred to Arizona or Louisiana. Now that family has to spend more money trying to find an attorney in the other state. I mean, they're doing it on purpose, so the person doesn't have access to counsel. And what happens is that people give up. A lot of calls I get, they're like, they had enough. They just signed for their deportation because they're tired of this. So I mentioned a little bit of this, but the policy shift at USCIS, just that with these new policies, it's more of an enforcement agency now instead of just reviewing paperwork. And that's something that's getting worse and worse. So I think I read that they want to now have the officers interviewing carry guns, and that they be allowed in the future to arrest individuals, and that's never happened. And the people that I talk to at USCIS, they're very overwhelmed. They have to go through polygraph tests now, and they can be fired, if they don't pass those tests. So they're just going through it too. And basically, it's just changed so much from what it used to be. So why can Department of Homeland Security do all of this? And it's because they just have so much discretion, and it's just everything is based on policy, not actual legislation. So anytime you throw in national security, they're basically protected, and there's court deference. So what's happening when we have actual consequences to people not applying for benefits or things getting denied? So crimes can go unreported. So those victims of crimes that can traditionally apply for a U visa, they're not reporting crimes. There's reports of people reporting crimes, and then the police calling ICE. So why would you report a crime if you could be deported? Immigrants can be exploited by anyone. Just if anyone says, I'll call immigration on you, it could be an employer, right, not paying you. Traditionally, you could also apply possibly for a trafficking visa if an employer doesn't pay you and threatens you with calling immigration, but immigrants are not going to report that right now. And so what you start to see are neighbors disappearing and families just going into hiding, maybe not sending their kids to school, not going to hospitals, and just living in the shadows. So there's that picture of Liam. I'm sure you heard the news that he's going to be back home, but that's not the reality for a lot of other families. Yes. Yeah. So what people can do, I think the number one on the legal side, number one thing is access to counsel, and that's going to be donating to organizations because there isn't enough right now. And also just sharing information from credible organizations, because there's so much misinformation out there. I mean, unfortunately, I have people in my family that are on the other side, and I'm always like trying to correct them and trying to get them to come back to this side. And but it's important to show them this is what's really going on. Don't believe just Fox News, wherever you're watching. And yeah, just use your voice. It's not a time to stay neutral. It's a time to act. And I appreciate that you guys are here wanting to learn more. And I think with Angie, she had talked about, we don't have a legal defense fund in Dallas. That hasn't been created, so that would be really great I look forward to hopefully helping with that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Trista is going to take questions. We have some minutes for questions, so this is your time, and you could ask questions of any of the speakers. We have about 20 minutes for questions. Yeah.
Raise your hand. Oh. How about I give you Hi there. Right here. I have a question for your, probably for our attorney here. First of all, thank you for the great information. We have a lovely housekeeper that helps us a couple times a month, and I do not know her immigration status, and I do not want to know. But what happens if I get a knock on the door? If somebody were to follow her there, do I need to open the door? What can I do to protect her and her family?
So, so you're saying if someone follows her and they try to come in and she's inside your home? Okay, so I think there was I don't know if you guys saw that in Minneapolis, there was a DoorDash driver that went into a home. So you are allowed to not open the door. They don't have a warrant. They don't have a judicial warrant. So that would be the first thing to ask for, to slip, if they have one, which they probably don't. So in that case, with the DoorDash driver, they lied and said that they were going to charge the owner of the house with harboring somebody undocumented. But they stood their ground and said, no, you're not coming in here, you're not coming in here. And they've eventually left. So I think they're going to intimidate you, and you just have to stand your ground and not open. No, you do not have to open the door.
I'll add to that too in saying that that is your property. That is your property, and you can stand and say, this is my property, you are not allowed here, unless you have a judicial warrant. They do have what's called an administrative warrant that you do not have to abide by. That's just, they made it look like a judicial warrant, but it has to be a judicial warrant signed by a judge, which in the 17 years that I've been doing this, I've seen zero, okay? It has to be a judicial warrant signed by a judge with the exact name of your employee. The way it is on her documentation, my name's Angelica Elizabeth Andrade Martinez. If it says Angela Andrade, if it says Angie Andrade, if it says anything other than my legal name, then that is not a warrant for me. And it has to have the address exactly. If there is something off on there, then they have to go back to the judge and get it corrected. But yeah, it has to be a judicial warrant and signed by a judge. They're gonna show, I wish I had a presentation, because there's a judicial warrant and administrative warrant. They look really similar, but it's not the same. It'll say up top, what it is.
I think the other thing that I want to add, and I was making sure with our attorney, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I know in Denton there's some businesses that are saying, well, if they an ICE agent follows them into the public setting, like if it's a restaurant, ICE can follow you into the public setting of the restaurant, but they don't have access to the employee only part. So if an owner of a business, says, come back here, then they can stop, them from coming into that employee only. And so, there's been talk about how do we, if I'm a business owner, how do I convey that to other people that might be driving, if they see a sign or something. So that's in the works. If you have an idea, that's something that we can talk about. The other thing is, you mentioned you don't want to know her status. I would invite you to have that conversation with the people that you care about. You give them the option, but honestly, I would rather someone say, hey, Lilyann, I'm really concerned about all this stuff going on. Is there anything that I can help you? Is there, do you want to share anything with me? Because I'm willing to help, X, Y, and Z. Because right now the concern might be for you and your home and what's going to happen to you. But if you're really caring and you're really here in this space, you're concerned for that family as well, that person that you call a friend, that person that, you've been employing. And so, there's a way to go around and have that conversation and just be very humble and be very curious and just come from a space of I just want to help and I want to be prepared if there's anything that I can do. And then you leave it up to them. They can say, oh, don't worry, I have my documents, or they can just say thank you, or they can share. And so if you're really concerned, right, and your concern is not only for yourself, have the conversation. Just be curious and be humble about it.
Well, I will also, just to add on that too, we have had, because we do we work as a collective with clergy, so they have been sharing the stories, and so we've had a lot of their congregation come and ask us, hey, the exact same question, how do I share this without intruding? And so the same thing, but it's here's all these resources, and you just say, hey, so follow this organization. They have all these great resources. Maybe you or someone you know can benefit from them without, and if, like I said, if they want to share.
My question was also if there could be a visual, like, comparison of the judicial warrant and an administrative warrant, and where, like, the biggest, like, areas to focus on would be if they look really similar. Because, I mean, personally, like, I wouldn't know, like, the difference.
Yeah, they have no. I've never seen one as many times, but in
Right.
person.
Yeah.
But I'll email it to
Like, the
that
difference
way.
between, like, what an official one would look like, and where those areas are that you can compare and be like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't say this.
The first thing would be in the top. It says like it does say judicial warrant at the top. On the administrative warrant, I don't recall. I have a picture of it though, but
Yeah.
I'll definitely send it because they're very similar.
Right.
But there's also differences that you can see. But unless you've seen both, you're not having no
Yeah.
idea.
Oh, and also, I didn't catch the name of your organization. Did you say your name is Angela Andrade?
Yeah, Angela. I go by Angie, and it's La Colectiva North Texas.
Okay, perfect.
I know it's
thank
kind of long, but I'll make sure to share as well. Yeah.
Hi, I was just curious about what you were saying earlier. You said a lot of the men are the breadwinners of the family, and when they're disappeared, they're left without money. Is that part of the systematic, like Stephen Miller, the systematic things we're seeing from that? Are they targeting the men specifically to disrupt that family, community, and unit?
Yeah, I was. It's a longer conversation about capital, but Latinos have been increasing as far as like our financial wealth, and so this is a really strategic way. It was done to previous communities to separate families and detain them, because a lot of these families are losing their businesses because the husband is the one who runs the business. And so having to liquidate their assets. Mind you, sometimes when they're here by themselves, like if a community member is here by themselves, they have no one else. I end up being an emergency contact, and I have to go to the home that is now abandoned because they have nobody. So who gets that property? I'm actually in conversation with attorneys about what happens to all of these homes, these cars, boats, anything that they've invested in while they've been here. Who gets that property? As far as when it goes to when they walk in with ICE obtains that property. That's theirs. So that's where I'm working with an attorney to figure out on the real estate, on their assets. But that's what it essentially is. So that's why the conversation is being had with them prior. Like, do you have a power of attorney? Like, who can access your bank accounts? Who is the title owner of these properties and things like that? So it definitely is, and it's very in your face if that's what's happening.
I want to also follow up because that's a really great point that you bring up. Also for our youth, the fact that DACA is going away or could possibly go away and it's not going to get renewed. I don't know how many of you guys are aware of House Bill 1403 that passed in 2001 here in Texas, later became Senate Bill 1528, that allows undocumented students to go to school in Texas for in-state tuition and to get state funding. That, after 25 years and Texas being the first in the country, is gone as of last summer. So you have students who are graduating high school, have been here since they were babies, don't have status, and now have to pay international fees if they go to college. You also have students who are halfway through the process. They might have one semester left of school, and now they can no longer get in-state tuition or afford in-state tuition. And so all of that is strategic, all right, to not allow these families, to have the financial needs. And also, we think that it's only going to impact the families. That's going to impact the economic development and the economy of Texas as a whole. So I want to just throw that out there as well.
So I had a question about the red cards. I had printed those out. I have had the conversation with a nice young woman that works for me, and she is undocumented. The red cards that have the
The Know Your Rights. Yes.
their rights in English and in Spanish, so that if they do get stopped, they know that they don't have to open their car door, or if they're at home, they don't have to open their house. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So do you think those are effective to hand out, or?
I mean, I think it's good for people to read them and know what their rights are, but are they respecting those rights? No. Are they,
Well.
if they're like, here's my card, they're not gonna be looking at it.
There's also an app, and the app will speak for them. It'll speak, for them in English, but they're not. I mean, people are getting dragged out of their cars. They're not,
Right.
Sorry.
But then they will at least.
I will say on
know.
the, so I also volunteer to like in my area, and this is something that everyone here can do, to be trained as a legal observer. And depending on your comfort level, but I would document if you see ICE. I know in some areas it's ICE or CBP, but here, at least in North Texas, it's ICE. The issue that we're having is that they're not in uniform, so they look like a regular person, but because they're leaving the field office, I can tell you that they don't have license plates in the front or back, so that's how you can determine. They're usually American cars, American-made cars, and they're not being uniformed because that's a new tactic that was just released, that because they're being masked up and stuff, people can see who they are. So to answer the question about the red card, I would still like say have them have the red card, and then if it's possible for them to start recording, there is an application that can send out like an emergency alert. But also if you can become a legal observer, get trained to become a legal observer. There are organizations that do it, where that way if you ever come in, you start recording, because they can then use that recording in the case of the person was saying, I told you you couldn't enter my home, I told you you couldn't enter my car, and you still legally did. Because we have seen the aftermath where we get calls on our hotline and we show up and the windows are busted, and that is here locally. That has been happening here locally, where they're doing that. I mean, cars are abandoned on the road, the car's still on, the music's still going, coffee's still sitting there because they were going to work. This is happening now, and it's happening here, whether or not we're seeing it, because a lot of us don't have the capacity to be recording every day, right? But it is happening, and so I would say we are using it for one case where the ICE agents, the man was driving to work. It was about 4:30 a.m. It's for his dash cam, and the ICE agents came up and like did a boxing him in. But in the video, you can see where it's dark, and all of a sudden these cars. So he had no idea what was going on. He was like, because he thought somebody was trying to hit him, but it was the ICE agents who then got out and pulled him out the car. He had the dash cam, thank goodness. So like letting everyone know, get a dash cam, start recording, because then they can then use that. In this case, they're using that dash cam and saying, because he was saying, I have a right to remain silent. So he already knew what to say, and they're able to use that in his case.
And what those red cards are doing is that they're at least helping people have that conversation. Oh, I don't have to show my identification to ICE. I do have to identify myself to a cop. Like a lot of people in the immigrant community, they still don't know that. And so that's what the red card is doing. It's allowing, for them to start having those conversations.
And I'll add on to that about being aware of, sharing with immigrants, be aware of who's driving behind you, because a colleague reported a case where their client went to immigration for their green card interview, and they were told there, you're approved. He went with his wife and his baby. Young guy, I think he had a DWI like 4 years ago, but it's been settled. And they followed him home and took him. And after he was told they were approved, so the attorney had to go to USCIS and say, what happened? I thought you guys said he was approved. And they said, like, we don't know what happened. We don't know how, like, we didn't order this. But then they were actually able to get the application approved in the system, and the attorney was able to go get him out of ICE. But that doesn't always happen. I mean, he was lucky that he got an officer at immigration at USCIS to enter that decision instantaneously. But now I tell all my clients with interviews, like, have a full tank of gas, maybe don't drive straight home, go to public areas, be really aware of who's behind you, because now that's a danger. You can go to your interview and be told you're approved, and then you have that surprise at home.
So you're doing so much, and thank you so much, and there's in other communities at a community level, so much is being done. But what's going on is anything going on at the federal level to stop this? I mean, this is insanity. Like,
I'm going to give
we-
this to our attorney, but I just read something in the news that there was Representative Escobar wanted an amendment removed from a bill that was being passed because they had the right to now arrest and deport U.S. citizens. She was trying to remove that, and they went back, even after the amendment was passed, like someone from the actual office, like they took that amendment off. And so at the federal level, I don't see anything positive happening.
No, and I think just because the executive branch has so much authority over immigration, and they're, they have Stephen Miller advising them, so they're not going to be on the same page as us. I think that's where voting matters and trying to change what we have in place.
I mean, how can we work to, you can call our senators, but like they have to do the right thing. They're not doing the right thing. When did not doing the right thing become the right thing? Does it?
Yes, I will tell you that I was very surprised with Denton County Commissioners Court that unanimously approved the signing of 287G agreement. So now, and I didn't see that, I didn't get any warning, or I would have showed up to the Commissioners Court to provide testimony. I think, if we're not calling, or if the senators, we're not even at the local level. ICE had a meeting with, I'm sure they've had them with Lewisville. We had them with city manager and the chief of police and the mayor in Denton, and we immediately were like, why wasn't this notified? Why are you not telling us? The commissioner, they really did sneak that, and so now all across Denton County, you have sheriff's department being trained by ICE, and we're already seeing the immediate, ramifications of that. Someone being detained by Ryan High School, them going to different properties, and so that, I think, is super important. If at the federal level they're not doing it, we have to start at this grassroots level and keep going up.
Lilyann, I'd like to share at the U.S. level, I don't know if you've heard, we're in a government shutdown right now, and that's because the House made the mistake of too many Democrats signing on to these authorization bills and went to the Senate. But the Senate said, wait a minute, we want to pull out the funding for DHS. We know in the one big bill that they spent a ton of money to DHS. So keeping this
Sorry about that. We have enough time, barely, for one more question.
Okay, so I just want to add to your comment about DACA student that lost their right to in-state tuition for public university. So the Ben Gardner, who is the representative in HD 63, filed a bill to deprive K-12 students the right to have free public education. And so this is just a reminder. So that bill fortunately didn't pass. But, you know, things can get worse. So can you imagine children of immigrants that are not documented, they can't access public schools for free? So this is just a reminder. We have our amazing Denise Wooden running to replace Ben Gardner. So yeah, there are things we can do.
Okay, well, I know you probably have lots more questions, so if you want to come and ask some questions after, I am going to make sure I get all of their information, and if you signed up or you've put your email address on the check-in station, I will get that all to you once I compile it. So, wow, has this not been an incredible program today? You know, I hope you're leaving this afternoon not only with more information on what's happening, but also a stronger sense of how you can make a difference. The current immigration crackdown is harming our communities and weakening our country, and it's up to us to take action. We have some whistle kits that Michelle Wright and her team are handing out. There's Michelle. So we worked on putting these together. I'm sure you're watching the news and you've heard the whistles blowing in Minneapolis. So we have some of those to hand out. But I do have some other announcements. First and foremost, vote. Vote. We have Fawn and Antonella over here at the voter registration table if you want to check your status, because if you haven't gotten your registration card, you gotta, you know, make sure that you're still registered, because we know there's a lot of dirty tricks going on. Or if you have a teenager or whatever, tomorrow, all registrations, that's the deadline for the primary, but you need to register. There is the primary coming up. Early voting is February 19th to the 27th, and primary election day is March 3rd. Remember, please vote. Excuse me, the 17th. Please vote in the Democratic primary. Okay, I know a lot of you think it's maybe strategic if you try to spoil things by voting in the Republican primary. It does not work. And what it does is it weakens the chances for our candidates. It weakens the money that comes in. It is very important. It's like, you know, we all saw, as Ernest said, there was a special election in Tarrant County, and the Democrats won. And it's sending a message. And so voting in the Democratic primary will send a message. So please vote in the Democratic primary. So voting is essential, but you know, there's more that you can do. I mean, everybody, that's something important that everybody should do, but there is more that you can do. You gotta get involved, take action. Like I said, we're gonna get some information, maybe make some donations to the mutual aid, become an observer, but there's also block walking, phone banking, working the polls, writing postcards, donating to our candidates, donating to your clubs, attending events like this one, and bring a friend, bring people, more people out here, because the more people that know what's going on, the better we are. So if you want to sign up, we do have some volunteer sheets at one of the tables in the back, but, and we'll contact you to help you get started. So now head back to the back of the room. We have some refreshments for everybody. And
Sorry to piggyback on that, but we have a couple of these extra signs for those who are precinct chairs, or if you just want to put it on like the corner of your street. It doesn't have the numbers, so you can reuse the sign. But the point is that if you have like a neighborhood where you know that people walk around or it'll be visible, you can put the dates and the months and the dates for the early election and the election day. And that way people who aren't comfortable talking about politics, at least they'll see it. Even if they don't open their door, or maybe they're not on your list, they don't show up on anybody's list because maybe they're not usually politically active. But a yard sign's a good place to start if you're not comfortable getting in the mix, or if you just want to make it more obvious.
okay, so I'd like to invite you to head to the back of the room, take part in some refreshments, but I also have all the candidates back there. And these candidates want to share with you about their platforms and their campaign literature. And they have yard signs for the primary coming up. So please, I thank you all for coming. Let's stay engaged and informed and vote in every election, every time. Thank you.